We will move straight into our next high-level panel now, and it is entitled Building Effective Leadership for Road Safety. And I think from our preceding discussions, it's pretty evident why we chose to spotlight this topic. The more complex the task, the more different actors who need to work together, clearly the more important it is to have strong leaders who can build awareness, who can set priorities and strategies, who can mobilize commitment and ownership, and also who can ensure accountability. And all those things have been mentioned in the various panels that we have had so far. So in this discussion, we want to talk about what that kind of leadership looks like when it comes to road safety and to Vision Zero, and we have outstanding leaders with us to do just that. So I am very honored to introduce the chairman of the FIA Foundation, the Right Honourable Lord Robertson. He's former Secretary General of NATO and UK Defence Secretary, formerly as well. In just a moment, he will get us started, together with Zuleka Mandela. She is Global Ambassador for the FIA Foundation. It's also my pleasure to introduce the UK's Roads Minister in the Department of Transport, Baroness Veer of Norbiton. Also, Morocco's Minister of Equipment, Transport, Logistics and Water, Mr. Abdelkader Amara. The Interministerial Delegate for Road Safety in the French Ministry of the Interior, Emmanuel Barbe. Latvia's Minister of Transport, Talis Linkaits. Secretary General of the European Association of Automotive Suppliers, which is known as CLEPA, that's Sigrid de Vries, welcome to you. And finally, the Director of the Private Sector Development and Finance Division at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, William Legemwa. So a very warm welcome to all of you, and we begin now with a short input from Lord Robertson and also from Global Ambassador Zuleka Mandela, and they will proceed right after each other, and I will just perhaps point out that Madam Mandela does also come to her leadership role through very personal experience of road safety risk. So please, Lord Robertson.
My friends, one delegate said to me the other night that if you come through the airport and you're asked why you're here, and you say, I'm here because of landmine clearance, you get a salute and a warm word of praise. If you come here and say, I'm here for road safety, you get basically a look of bored indifference. Now, I'm sure all of you recognize that fact. But why on earth is that the case? After all, road crashes kill more people in more countries than anti-personnel landmines. And road crashes also maim, disable, fracture, traumatize, and hospitalize millions of people, especially young people, right across the world every day of every week of every year. So why is it that this catastrophic loss of life and health on the world's roads has not engendered anything like the same feeling of revulsion and anger and desire for action as did landmines or malaria or HIV/AIDS? You know, I speak to you today as a former Minister of Defence who supervised the destruction of all of Britain's landmines, and I personally destroyed the very last one that existed in my country. I was so proud that day because it was a job done after outraged public opinion across the world had said that they must all go. But why then can the world look on at road crashes with cars and vehicles driven by adults which kill 250,000 children and teenagers every year and brutally injure and maim 10 million others, and somehow not rise up in similar rage? After all, that cohort of the population from 5 to 29, for whom road crashes are the number one cause of death, they represent the world's future. They're going to be the future doctors and scientists, the inventors and the entrepreneurs, the farmers, the engineers, the artists, and indeed the political decision makers of our future. They're the ones who will work and earn and pay the taxes, which will in turn pay the rising costs for the pensions and the medicines and the care homes for the rest of us as we grow older in increasing numbers. Why are we so complacent as road traffic kills and injures so many of this seed corn generation? Are we incapable of seeing that we don't actually need to research and invent new expensive vaccines for this international epidemic? They already exist and we know what they are. Slow down. Slow down. That needs to be our message. Slow down in the streets, near schools. Slow down in crowded cities. Slow down and protect pedestrians. Slow down and protect the air we breathe. Slow down and save lives. Slow down. Simple, effective, life-saving, implementable, and urgent. Slow down. You know, just think. Thank you. You just think for a moment, my friends, if there was one simple answer for ending premature deaths of babies, would we not do it? If there was one simple way of ending plastics in the world's oceans, of one way of ending the drugs and opioid crisis, one simple way of ending the plague of child abuse pornography on the internet, would we not be mad and irresponsible and culpable if we didn't simply do it? So we have one way, one main way to reduce the slaughter, just by slowing down the speed of traffic. Slow down. It's a simple message, enough to grab attention to the scandal of the damage that is being done to the youngsters on whom we are all going to depend in the future. And of course, it's not enough. We need helmets and seat belts, less alcohol, better roads, safer cars, more education. But get attention to slow down, and maybe the rest will follow on. Slow down, I say to you. Slow down. Just say it and repeat it over and over again until ministers of transport, of health, of interior, of development, finance ministers and prime ministers too get the message. Slow down. And then, perhaps then, when it penetrates through, then when we see what's happened here in Sweden, where last year the number of young people dying on the roads was close to zero, then it might just happen across the planet. And that will indeed be a day when all of us can feel proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Madam Mandela.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. I am truly honored to have been afforded the opportunity to address you here at the Third Global Ministerial. As many of you may know, I have been campaigning worldwide on road traffic injury for nearly 10 years. I take inspiration from my grandparents, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela and Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela, who are the blueprint behind the work that I do. But today, I address you as a mother of 5 children. I address you today as a mother whose daughter was killed by a drunk driver in 2010. My daughter, Zenani Mandela, who had barely been a teenager for 48 hours, sustained horrific injuries that resulted in a closed casket. I was not allowed to prepare my daughter's body for her burial. My family were themselves far too traumatized to grasp mentally and emotionally the injuries they had seen as they assisted with dressing my daughter's body. On that very same day, when I had given my father a new pair of shoes for my daughter to wear, I was told that she only needed one shoe as her foot was amputated during the crash. To my daughter, Zenani, baby, I stand here before you, before our leaders, and I stand here for you. For all the innocent children who lost their lives. I stand for the thousands of families that continue to suffer each and every day, who suffer from this preventable man-made epidemic. In this session on leadership, I turn and look at you, all our ministers here today. It is you who must step forward. Nearly 5 years ago, at the previous ministerial in Brasilia, we called for action and demanded lower speeds by all schools, no excuse. Safe pavements in all our cities, no excuse. Safe routes to school for each and every single child, no excuse. We were asking too much. We were not asking for too much. We were asking for simple, affordable, life-saving measures to be in place everywhere, no excuses. In the past 10 years, there has been progress, and we have powerful examples of where fatalities and injuries have been reduced. I know that we all need to step up and show leadership. But are we also all failing? Often, I admit that we do not articulate our demands very well as everyday people, but sometimes it is hard to speak your language, the language of policymakers and road engineers, but don't ever mistake that for apathy. Perhaps we should do more to kick ministers out of office if they do not give us the safety that our children deserve. Perhaps this is where we are failing. Together, we are calling for action. We want a global summit for adolescents with road safety at the center. It is time to stop taking road safety in isolation. We are looking at all major issues, combined issues that continue to take the lives of so many of our children. If you can't take action for our young people and for the future, who can you take action for? We must shine the light on leadership. Almost exactly 30 years ago, my grandfather was released from prison. And I'd like to think that if he were here, standing with me, he would ask you to take his example and finally make a change. Our future is at stake. I urge you to join together with our young people and properly address the big burdens that they face. Please show your leadership, and I plead with you, in memory of my daughter, Zenani, and on behalf of all of our youth and our future. No more excuses. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. So 2 clear leadership messages there. Slow down and no excuses, ensure accountability on the part of leaders. So with that, let us now talk a little bit about all of your experience in terms of examples of successful leadership in this area. Again, I'm going to go right down the panel. I'm going to ask for brief answers because our time frame is limited, and ask just of you, each of you to share a personal example of a leadership experience or two that you have had of a kind of a model. So please, Baroness Veer.
Well, thank you very much. And we are relatively fortunate in the UK in that we have some of the world's safest roads. And I'm not going to lie, it doesn't feel like that sometimes. And I think one of the most interesting things about being a transport minister, and one of the things I do hold dear, is being able to meet the families. Because sometimes when you meet the families and you hear their stories, you realise the impact, because it is still the case that 5 people die on average every day on the roads in the UK. And so as a UK Transport Minister, we are at a very interesting point in terms of reducing the number of casualties on our roads. There is no magic bullet for the UK at all. We have to look down at the detail. Every little thing needs to be considered because our casualty rates are only going to go down by small and incremental change as we get better and better at certain things. But in terms of leadership, one of the things that most struck me when I became Roads Minister about 6 months ago is the long history of the UK government being involved in public awareness campaigns. And it's a very, very important thing. We started doing public awareness campaigns 75 years ago. We have probably a world-known campaign called Think, which takes various elements based on data and it puts them in the channels that they need to be seen. So they might go onto Facebook to certain demographics. We do it all on data. And that element, because what we can do with that campaign is we can put different messages in. Now, why is this important and why is this leadership? Because it's just a public information campaign, right? Well, the leadership has to come from the top in terms of the messaging, because I work with so many fantastic organizations in this space, both within government and beyond government, NGOs, but it's about the messaging that everybody can be saying the same thing. Because if there's one thing that will make a fundamental change to the road safety in every single country, and that is empathy. Understanding your fellow road user, respecting your fellow road user. It is not just for you to get from A to B as quickly as possible, irrespective of everybody else. You have to empathize with other people. You have to learn who they are, why they are there, and where they're going. And to do that, you need public information. And by having a really good public information campaign that can put forward those messages, that is one of the ways that we can succeed.
One really quick follow-up question, if I may, also on the question of awareness. I know that the UK has Prince Michael as patron of road safety for the Commonwealth, I believe, as well. Does that make a difference, putting a face on it to help raise awareness?
Of course it does. And this is the thing, is we need to get as many people who have a public voice as possible involved in all of the different campaigns, because there is, again, no one campaign that can do everything. Prince Michael has done fantastic work. He has his awards, which really brings to the fore some of the really important developments so that everybody can see them. Learning best practice is really, really important. I'm delighted that he's with us today. He's taken a great interest in this for decades.
Thank you very much. So let me come to Minister Amara, and your country acted as host of the first African Road Safety Forum in 2018. So perhaps you could just say a word about leadership experience there and what prompted you to decide to take that role.
Merci. Alors, tout d'abord, je pense que le Royaume du Maroc, comme tous les autres pays, ils sont devant une thématique qui est très complexe. Moi, j'ai suivi ce matin la session plénière. Tout le monde parlait de la complexité de l'insécurité routière. Nous, au Maroc, on l'a compris depuis plusieurs années. On a compris qu'on ne peut pas lutter contre l'insécurité routière uniquement par l'émotion, uniquement par la sensibilisation. Ils sont très importants, mais ils ne sont pas suffisants. Donc nous avons agi sur deux niveaux, parce qu'on parle de leadership. On ne peut pas faire face à cette insécurité sans leadership, qu'on soit d'accord là-dessus. Donc nous, on avait agi à deux niveaux. D'abord un leadership politique et un leadership institutionnel. Sur le plan politique, le tournant que nous avons fait dans notre pays, c'est en 2005, quand le comité qui était chargé de la sécurité routière a été présidé par Sa Majesté le Roi lui-même. Et c'était très important, parce que ça a donné, j'allais dire, un coup de fouet à ce que nous allons faire par la suite. Et l'année suivante, en 2006, nous avons pratiquement constitué un mini-gouvernement qui est présidé par le chef de gouvernement lui-même. Alors, parce qu'avant, il était difficile, parce que vous avez le ministère de l'Intérieur d'un côté, mon ministère d'un côté, le ministère de la Santé, et puis il y avait beaucoup d'intervenants, c'était complexe, c'était, in fine, chacun travaillait de sa façon, dans son silo, comme on dit en français. Donc nous, avec ce mini-gouvernement, on a commencé vraiment, et c'est là on a senti qu'il y avait une stratégie, qu'il y avait des chiffres, qu'il y avait des réunions d'évaluation, et que les gens devenaient comptables, redevables de ce qu'ils doivent faire chaque année. Parce que c'est un comité qui est présidé par le chef de gouvernement qui se réunit au moins 2 fois par an. Puis bien sûr, il y a des comités techniques que je préside moi-même. Alors, nous avons senti qu'effectivement, depuis qu'on a commencé, que chaque année, il y avait une baisse, notamment en matière de décès sur les routes. Et à fin 2019, je pourrais vous dire qu'on est déjà, quand on rapporte le nombre de décès aux 100 000 habitants, on est aux alentours de 9,51, qui nous fait proche des normes européennes quand on est d'un pays dans le continent africain. Donc oui, la sensibilisation, elle est importante, sensibiliser les gens, important, mais la complexité de cette thématique nécessite d'agir sur le législatif, sur l'institutionnel, sur le réglementaire, sur l'éducation, sur la sensibilisation, sur la société civile, sur l'art, on pourrait utiliser tout ce qu'on a devant nous, mais il faudrait justement que tout ce monde puisse parler le même langage. Et ça, on ne peut pas le faire sans stratégie, et on ne peut pas le faire si on n'institutionnalise pas cette stratégie. Voilà l'expérience du Royaume du Maroc.
Et peut-être un mot sur le rôle de leadership régional.
Oui, alors, bien sûr, bon, ça a été dit, ça nous fait mal parce que quand on parle des chiffres du continent africain, on est quand même à 26,6 pratiquement de décès par 100 000 habitants, ce qui est très important. Nous avons compris qu'un des grands problèmes déjà à l'échelle du continent africain, c'est qu'il y a chaque pays a ses priorités. Il y a beaucoup de priorités. Le chômage, c'est une priorité. La pauvreté, c'est une priorité. Les infrastructures, c'est une priorité. Donc, on a commencé par le commencement. C'est déjà de réunir tous ces politiques. Parce qu'in fine, c'est les politiques qui prennent les décisions. Donc, on a fait le séminaire à Marrakech. Il y avait plus d'une vingtaine de ministres du continent africain. Et on a sorti par quelque chose de très important. C'est d'abord d'instaurer un observatoire. Parce qu'en l'absence de chiffres, on ne peut pas parler de stratégie. Il faut d'abord qu'on fasse le diagnostic, qu'on sache un petit peu ce que nous avons, pour qu'après, quand on fixe les stratégies, on puisse revenir à ces chiffres. Et si vous me permettez, je vais dire une chose qui est très importante. C'est vrai qu'en matière de sécurité routière, quoi qu'il en soit, quand quelqu'un meurt, ça nous fait mal. Mais en stratégie, on ne peut raisonner qu'en chiffres, parce que si on ne raisonne pas en chiffres, on ne peut pas avancer. Et justement, il faut qu'il y ait des chiffres, il faut qu'il y ait des chiffres fiables pour que les gens sentent effectivement qu'il y a des efforts qui se font, qu'on est en train d'avancer, qu'on n'est pas en train de reculer.
Merci beaucoup. Interministerial Delegate Barb, the French story has some similarities because you, in fact, made tremendous progress reducing traffic injuries and death following a key move by President Jacques Chirac. So perhaps you can just say a word about what that was and how it changed things.
Merci. D'abord, je suis très honoré d'être présent à cette table ronde. Par rapport à Lord Robertson, en France, si vous parlez, vous dites que vous vous occupez de sécurité routière, votre dîner est gâché, littéralement. C'est l'affaire Dreyfus permanente, en fait. Et donc, c'est très difficile de s'occuper de sécurité routière. Et c'est vrai que les fois où ça a marché, c'est d'abord Jacques Chirac qui a en effet lancé un programme très impopulaire chez nous, c'est le radar automatique, parce que nous avons un réseau immense qui fait 1 million de kilomètres, c'est le plus grand d'Europe. Et le seul moyen de le surveiller est de faire qu'on ralentisse, car je pense que le président Chirac avait sans doute rencontré Lord Robertson à l'époque. Il a voulu faire ralentir, et ça a beaucoup marché. On a eu une période un peu stable et puis on avait du mal à faire baisser les chiffres. Et donc, Édouard Philippe a aussi rencontré Lord Robertson et il a décidé de faire ralentir les Français en faisant baisser les vitesses de 90 à 80 km/h sur les routes de France. Ça a été une sorte de drame national. Hein. Les 10 km/h perdus semblaient quelque chose qui procurait du bonheur avant et qu'on a perdu. Et ça a été un débat très, très difficile. C'est devenu pour la première fois ce sujet de santé publique, un sujet de politique, avec des interpellations constantes au Parlement. Et on a dû lâcher un petit peu, mais pas trop. Et tout ça pour dire que si le sujet n'avait pas été étreint au niveau du Premier ministre ou du Président de la République, on aurait lâché beaucoup plus et beaucoup plus vite. Et je pense que finalement, cette idée que, vous savez, on dit ça, on commence à balayer un escalier par le haut, ça marche dans toutes les politiques. Et en sécurité routière, encore plus, pour une raison simple, c'est que vous avez très peu de politiques qui concernent autant de gens dans un pays, puisque pratiquement de l'âge de 2 ans à l'âge de 90 ans, vous êtes sujet de la sécurité routière. Et donc, tout le monde se sent concerné par cela. J'ajoute que chacun pense que son expérience de conduite lui donne des compétences d'accidentologue, ce qui complique encore le travail. Et donc pour cela, je pense que toute politique de sécurité routière doit commencer par un leadership très fort. J'ai beaucoup travaillé avec les entreprises depuis 5 ans que je fais ce métier. Et dans les entreprises, c'est la même chose. Si le leadership le plus élevé de l'entreprise n'est pas concerné, ça ne peut pas marcher parce qu'il y a une résistance humaine. J'ai envie de dire, parce que je suis en Suède et que je suis un peu démagogue, aussi masculine, hein, puisque c'est 82% des auteurs d'accidents en France, c'est des hommes. Hein, donc c'est aussi un problème d'homme, hein, ce problème-là. Et aussi peut-être parce que nous sommes une société où les femmes ne sont pas encore assez dirigeantes. Et peut-être que ça aussi, ça pourrait aider dans un leadership fort. Voilà ce que je peux vous dire à peu près là-dessus.
Merci beaucoup. Let me come to you, Minister Linkaits, and I'd like to ask you to talk a little bit about leadership in terms of long-term horizons, because it's often said precisely in this sector that there's a problematic disjunction between the long time horizons that are needed to truly transform a transport system and the short election cycle horizons that we so often have in politics. So I know that Latvia has been trying to shift toward truly long-term planning, and maybe you can say a word about how leadership figures in there.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The political cycle and the planning cycle of the infrastructure of the long-term policies is different. I would like just to mention that during the last decade we have managed to decrease deaths on the roads by 40% and seriously injured accidents by 20%, and especially pedestrians fatalities by 51%, despite of increase of general traffic volumes. But with each next step, it gets more and more difficult to change the pattern and to change also kind of minds of people and behaviors of people. If we look at the leadership issues, then we are the ones who have to spread the word, who have to spread the message constantly, continuously. And it just seems like that safety on the roads and Vision Zero is something very popular and should be understood as something natural. But when you start implementing particular activities, and just recently we were facing one public action against the change of road infrastructure, we have detected specific so-called dark points where the road safety has been on a low level with incidents and also death activities, and we have decided to change particular part of the infrastructure. And then the local people come and say, well, we have driven this way for decades. Why should we change? We, of course, accept safety on road, but not in my backyard. Yeah. Yeah, and then this is the task of leader and task of the minister to state clearly what are our priorities. That safety on the road is prior to your maybe some personal problems in a short run. And in terms of long-term planning, yes, we have set our priorities similarly to other European countries to have this Vision Zero on the roads, on the infrastructure, also to have kind of a mind shift. But it takes quite an effort and leadership. This is one where we should work on main messages constantly, every message 40 times.
Thank you very much. Let me come to you, Secretary Viris. And CLEPA unites the suppliers to Europe's automakers. So you are an association with enormous technology know-how. And we've talked a good deal here about the various technologies that could really help us to slow down, for example, or to implement other aspects of road safety. So where and how are CLEPA and its members able to provide real leadership on this? Is the willingness to do so there?
Oh, absolutely. Indeed, European suppliers to the automotive industry have traditionally been leading the world, so developing new technologies to make vehicles and to make mobility safer. And I use the word mobility on purpose because it's focused in the beginning more on vehicles and even those in vehicles, and today it's more about mobility and vehicle-related road safety. So tremendous developments, a tremendous passion also, and leadership indeed. And this, I think, is illustrated by constantly raising awareness for the need to do more. We do that by training customers, of course, but also those that use vehicles, but also talking to policymakers. In this case, on this issue, we're actually advocating for more regulation, which is not often what you hear from industries asking for regulation. In this case, we do because it's a lever indeed to then improve safety on the roads. So it's about awareness, it's about being vocal about it. CLEPA, on behalf of our members, of course, updated its vision only last year. And the first word in our new vision is about safety. It's about future mobility, the aspiration for future mobility to be safe, sustainable, and smart. So there's a clear recognition and a clear determination and to make a difference and to continue on that road.
Thank you very much. And now I will ask Director Lugemwa to comment on the leadership role of the ECA. In fact, you are charged with fostering integration and cooperation among no less than 54 member states. So clearly there would be a demand for leadership, I would suppose. And what can ECA do to really provide the kind of coordinating impulse that's needed when it comes to road safety?
I think when it comes to road safety and with regards to ECA and the partners we work with, most of the challenges that have been identified with regards to the implementation of road safety in country and within the African continent are capacity issues. So the Economic Commission for Africa is heavily involved in the training of member countries and also the regional bodies to ensure that road safety is taken as one of the key areas of focus within the transport network and transport infrastructure. In addition to that, we do the coordination and alignment because, as you're aware, countries have got their own strategies, they've got their own plans, but we are looking at integrating the whole of Africa. So regional integration, we have to make sure that what we are looking in terms of road safety in one country is aligned to the country next door and for the entire continent. With regards to the ECA and its role and assistance with regards to road safety, we do advisory work and we work with a number of our partners on the African continent, the African Development Bank. We also work with the World Bank in providing that critical training and capacity building to country safety bodies and also the regional safety bodies.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, time is passing very quickly on this panel, so I'm going to ask everyone to please try to take a fairly brief look with me at the obstacles and challenges that we face in trying to get real movement on road safety and how leadership may help to unlock those obstacles and challenges. So what I'm thinking of in particular is what works in practice to get ownership. In a way, Madame Mandela's call saying no more. What were your exact words? No excuse, exactly. Is all about accountability and ownership, saying, yes, I take the responsibility for this. So if all of you would just say a word about leadership in this context, I would appreciate it. And Baroness, I would also like to ask you, because I know that your previous service was as executive director of the Girls' School Association.
Yes.
And when Mr. Barb talked about gender as an aspect of this, I was thinking maybe you would care to comment on that as well.
Certainly. Well, we have 6 transport ministers in the UK. Only one does roads, and that's me, so that's fine. And we are 50-50. So that's not too bad. But certainly there is an issue within transport in general. I find that there's not enough senior female leaders around. I hope that the pipeline will improve. But certainly we're trying to lead from the front within the department by having lots of women at the top.
Do you think the policymakers would approach leadership on road safety differently if the gender balance were otherwise?
I think that might be the case. I couldn't possibly comment because I'm not sure that there's any evidence on that. However, I'm sure many people have read the book where it states that a lot of the road safety testing is for men and done by men, and actually women are more likely to die in car accidents or incidents. So I need to look into that in a little bit more detail. So I'm not going to make policy on the hoof because I'll probably get booted out of government. But those sorts of things really, really are important. But one of the things I do want to say about leadership, and I think in the context of road safety, this is really, really difficult, and it may be a little bit uncomfortable to hear this. But we are dealing with people's lives. We are dealing with really, really important issues, and it's very emotional. And sometimes we can be driven by anecdote and the emotion around a particular incident that has happened. And I suppose the plea that I have is, and because most adults are drivers, and so they think they know best. And it was interesting to hear from the Latvian minister about, well, we've always driven this way. Why would we want to change? I think the most important thing about leadership within the transport space is to look at the evidence and the data. And it's really difficult sometimes to say to people who say, but this junction has always worked this way, why have we changed it? Well, because it's safer, and we know it's safer, and the evidence shows that it's safer. And sometimes that's the sort of leadership that is really, really difficult to do, because there will be a lot of pressure coming from various other spaces, but it's got to be evidence-based, because if we are going to get incremental improvements in our casualty data, that is how we are going to achieve it.
So that gives the leader something to really hold out and
Absolutely.
say, follow the science.
Yeah.
Sure, please.
I'd like to just pick up very briefly on this gender issue, because what we actually see is that many of the test facilities or the dummies used in crashes are built around the average white male until now. So one of the developments that also my members are working on is to provide for different dummies, from children to maybe elderly people or the average Black woman, to be able to deliver better results also when it comes to protective safety or even pedestrian safety if it comes to external things. And if I can pick up on your question on ownership, I think leadership in our case comes immediately, and it's been said today before, with collaboration. You need to take action together, so you need to hold each other accountable and responsible, and not be afraid to ask and approach also parties that you may not think of in the first instance. So it's about collaboration, doing it together across sectors and across parties.
Is there a party like that in the collaborations you're involved in where you would say this was an unexpected organization to be involved? Yeah. What would it be?
Well, we were fighting a lot with an organization called Transport and Environment, which is an NGO really focused at environmental issues. But in the field of safety, we're actually working together. So there you also find new partnerships, you find coalitions, and that is possible, and I think it's very good that we do that.
Thank you. So let me get some more comments from the ministers. Minister Amara, perhaps you can also say a word about challenges facing, or particularly in the area of getting people to own the problem and be rendered accountable.
Bon, je dirais d'abord que la sécurité routière, c'est l'affaire de tout le monde. Qu'on soit des hommes ou des femmes, c'est l'affaire de tout le monde. Donc, et de deux, je pense que la sécurité routière, c'est chaque jour. Il faut travailler chaque jour. Nous, on a compris, parce que je disais tout à l'heure qu'on avait un comité. Maintenant, nous avons créé une agence qui a été créée par loi, qui est dédiée à la sécurité routière. Et c'est très important, parce que pour créer une agence, il faut passer par le Parlement. Donc, on a pris 2 ans pour convaincre les politiciens de l'importance de l'agence et qu'elle aura des missions très importantes. Donc voilà, nous avons une agence, nous avons institutionnalisé. Bien sûr qu'il y a des difficultés, parce que quand vous prenez les chiffres que nous avons au Royaume du Maroc, vous avez pratiquement 60%, c'est des piétons. Enfin, les tués, c'est des piétons et c'est les usagers des 2 roues, 3 roues. Et c'est des catégories qui sont un peu difficiles, parce qu'un piéton, en général, quand le niveau d'éducation est bas, c'est des gens qui ont l'impression qu'ils ne sont pas concernés par le code de la route. Donc c'est tout un travail qui doit se faire. Mais je vais vous dire une chose pour rester sur une note optimiste. Je pense qu'on a beaucoup à faire, mais il faut qu'on le fasse d'une manière organisée, qu'il faut qu'il soit des actions stratifiées et des actions qui sont quantifiables, mesurables. Il faut qu'on garde l'espoir. Je pense qu'on arrivera à juguler, peut-être pas dans cette logique de vision zéro, ça me paraît un petit peu utopique, mais peut-être pour certains pays, ça peut marcher. Mais pour l'ensemble de la planète, pour certains pays qui ont d'autres problèmes, je pense que déjà le fait de réduire, le fait que les politiciens parlent de la sécurité routière, le fait que des gouvernements parlent de la sécurité routière, le fait que les élites de la société civile, qu'ils soient des gens de l'art ou des humoristes, parlent de la sécurité routière, c'est déjà quelque chose de très important.
Merci. Monsieur Barab, your title suggests an interesting approach to cross-sectoral leadership, the fact that you are an interministerial delegate, is it? Yeah. So perhaps you can say a word about your function in fostering coordination, how you do take leadership of that intersectoral piece.
Avant de vous répondre, juste dire qu'en France, l'an dernier, il y a 460 femmes qui ont été tuées par des hommes. Donc, toutes les fois que les femmes confient leur destin à un homme, elles prennent un risque. Donc, je dis ça, c'est féministe, la sécurité routière. En fait, chez nous, nous avons une direction générale du ministère de l'Intérieur que je dirige. Et dans le même temps, je suis délégué interministériel à la sécurité routière. Et me sont rattachés un certain nombre de personnes qui m'aident à faire le pont avec tous les autres ministères parce que, pour faire simple, il y a à peu près 8 à 9 ministères qui doivent être impliqués dans cette politique. Nous avons aussi un management avec, comme dans beaucoup de pays, un conseil interministériel de la sécurité routière qui est présidé par le Premier ministre, avec tous les ministères importants. Nous avons aussi un conseil national de la sécurité routière qui réunit l'ensemble des gens qui veulent faire avancer la sécurité routière et aussi ceux qui veulent la faire reculer. Mais c'est bien que tout le monde puisse parler ensemble. Et je pense, pour rejoindre ce que disait le ministre du Royaume du Maroc, que le sujet fondamental en sécurité routière, c'est que toujours on en parle. Dans les sujets de prévention, quand on cesse d'en parler, on recule. Et de ce point de vue-là, je n'ai pas à me plaindre parce que les médias français en parlent absolument tout le temps. J'ai fait l'an dernier à peu près 600 interviews. C'est quelque chose d'anormal quand on y réfléchit. J'ai appris avec étonnement qu'en Suède, c'est un non-sujet, la sécurité routière, qu'est l'Europe-pays. Du coup, moi, j'aimerais bien arriver à faire 2 choses. Que chez moi, on considère la vision zéro, c'est-à-dire l'inacceptabilité d'un mort sur les routes. Nous, on a des politiques qui disent que le nombre qu'on a atteint est normal. Donc, c'est déjà compliqué. Et la deuxième chose, je pense, comme axe de leadership, ce sera de joindre la cause environnementale à la cause de la sécurité routière. Il va de soi que si on baisse les vitesses, on consomme moins, on pollue moins. Et quand on fait une entreprise, quand on est une entreprise, on économise de l'argent. Donc, je pense que c'est des axes de leadership qui sont importants. En France, l'environnement et la sécurité routière, ça ne matche pas. Il y a même des gens qui m'ont prétendu qu'en roulant à 80, ils consommeraient plus qu'en roulant à 90. Donc, le débat est totalement irrationnel, mais je pense que l'environnement commence à être une cause qui est suffisamment mobilisatrice pour traîner avec elle, en tout cas dans mon pays, la sécurité routière.
Merci. Minister Likaits, please.
I wanted to continue with the experience of interministerial cooperation. In Latvia, we have a Road Traffic Safety Board, which is co-chaired by Minister of Transport and also Minister of Interior, where we have included all the relevant institutions, ministries, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, different municipal organizations and largest NGO groups, where we discuss the most important traffic safety issues. And of course, to gain the ownership, we need to collect supporters of the issue. So we have a special think tank on road safety established, where basically every NGO, every interested person can come up with ideas, can come and discuss ideas, and to see that there is no black and white, and you can find the solution that is most suitable for particular infrastructure piece or technology or approach.
Thank you very much. And Sigrid, I think, already spoke on the subject, so I'll jump over to you, Mr. Lugwemwa.
Yes.
And perhaps, because we are going to be very short on time quite soon, let me ask you to also talk a little bit about the role of international organizations in providing, you talked about capacity, the importance of capacity building for Africa, so perhaps you can say a word about that as well as about the other issue of coordination and ownership.
Thank you so much. And with regards to that capacity and leadership on road safety, one of the challenges and one of the few areas where we've seen that is lacking is the role of a champion with regards to taking ownership of road safety. That lack of a champion is common throughout all regions and all countries, to the extent that, according to the information I have, there's only one country that has ratified the Road Safety Charter. So where's the leadership? Who is championing this in-country and within the region? We talk about road safety and training, and we talk about the good strategies, but without a champion to own road safety in-country, it becomes very, very difficult. So from our side as the ECA, we need to bring on board that sort of training and showing the need that for a good strategy to be implemented, for deliverables to be seen and achieved, there has to be a champion, someone who's taking the driving seat with regards to the implementation of road safety on the African continent.
And may I just ask, in the work of your member countries with international development partners, how does leadership figure into that? And I'm thinking partly of the question of how can countries own the road safety issue when they are working with international partners and at the same time essentially be involved in a cooperation with partners who perhaps have their own very clear ideas?
I think that's when we come and put clearly what we need and what the vision is and the strategy for that respective country. Very often there's a lack of understanding of the vision and strategy, and hence it becomes very difficult to implement any of the road safety strategies and plans as proposed by the respective countries. So the Economic Commission for Africa brings on board that training in terms of leadership, taking ownership, having a clear vision, clear timelines. Otherwise, you'll have a very nice vision with no end date, and will continue coming here and talking about road safety next year and in the coming 5 years. So that training, capacity building, and getting a champion to own road safety in country is what the ECA brings on board together with other development partners.
Thank you very much. So we have about 4 minutes left before I want to go back to Lord Robertson for some closing words. Let me ask anyone on the panel who would also like to speak to leadership within international cooperation to please just give me a sign and go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think it is a very important point. For the automotive industry, having globally harmonized requirements or standards is very important, and this will in the end be beneficial to everyone because it makes technologies more available and accessible in the markets around the world. So there we work a lot in Geneva with UNECE, where you have type approval or technical requirements for vehicle and also parts and components, and that's incredibly important, and it does help promote also road safety.
Thank you very much. Other thoughts?
I'd just like to second what you just said. I think vehicle standards and approval systems is going to be absolutely critical. I think before I became Roads Minister, I didn't realise that you can sell the same truck in 2 different countries and it be fundamentally different in terms of safety. I find that shocking. And I think that really, of all of the things that could make a big difference, particularly in developing African countries, that to me really requires good leadership. The UK stands ready to help. We are good at type approval, and I think that that is a real game changer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Monsieur Barbe?
Moi, je pense que si la violence routière était contagieuse, on aurait déjà beaucoup avancé.
One moment, your mic isn't up yet. Could we have Monsieur Barbe's microphone up? Go ahead and try it again.
Je disais, je pense que le vrai problème de la sécurité routière, ou de la violence routière, c'est qu'elle n'est pas contagieuse. C'est-à-dire qu'on n'a pas peur de la violence routière des autres pays. Donc il faut trouver des mécanismes autour de ça. Je pense que, par exemple, on peut le faire dans certains marchés publics, de dire on ne fait un marché public que si les standards de sécurité routière d'une compagnie sont suffisants. Donc on peut essayer de créer, je pense, ce type de standard aussi pour prendre en compte le niveau, on le fait pour d'autres domaines, mais le niveau de sécurité auquel on est parvenu en matière de sécurité routière. Nous, on a quelques grandes entreprises en France, je veux dire, qui se sont imposées d'avoir, dans les pays où elles travaillent en Afrique, les mêmes standards qu'en France. Je pense que, je ne veux pas être spécialement chauvin, mais je pense que, et d'autres le font certainement mieux encore, mais je pense que c'est une voie qu'il faut suivre, c'est-à-dire d'essayer de considérer que c'est comme une maladie contagieuse et que donc on ne peut pas être indifférent aux morts dans un autre pays, surtout si c'est pour une activité faite à notre profit.
You know, if we think back to what we heard from the minister from Mali in the previous panel, talking about the old cars that are being exported by Europe to Mali, presumably some of them without even seatbelts, I suppose. Who else would like to speak to the point about international cooperation and leadership? Go ahead.
Latvia, as a part of European Union, we really value the cooperation what we have among EU countries on road safety issues and similar. But still, it is important, and I think it would be good that any new policies that are developed in European Union have an impact assessment, how they relate to the road safety measures, how they improve road safety. And the last example, what we had discussed just a few days ago in Brussels about the mobility package that somehow stimulates additional trucks on the road and additional empty trucks being driven on the roads is one example where we would really like to see this impact assessment before the decision is being made on new legislation.
Thank you very much. Minister Amara, any other thought to close?
Oui, je voulais juste réagir par rapport à ce que vous avez, parce que vous avez cité le cas des voitures effectivement qui viennent de l'étranger, qui sont vieilles. Ça, c'est des décisions politiques, il faut les arrêter. On avait ce problème, on a interdit. Alors, on a interdit juste l'âge de 5 ans. Moins de 5 ans, on peut importer, plus de 5 ans, on n'importe pas. Et du coup, il y avait une réduction drastique de ce flux qui était important parce que les gens se disaient si c'est moins de 5 ans, autant s'orienter vers le marché local et acheter une voiture neuve, d'autant plus qu'il y avait des crédits qui permettaient ça. Je voulais juste dire, pour rendre à César ce qui est à César, ce qui est très important, c'est que cette coopération avec les organisations internationales est très importante, notamment en matière de gouvernance. Parce que quand on parle de cette problématique, il y a cette gouvernance. Il y a certains pays qui n'ont pas nécessairement besoin de fonds, mais ils ont besoin juste d'une assistance en matière de planification, de gouvernance, et ça c'est très important. Je pense qu'en benchmark international, il y a beaucoup d'expériences qui transitent via les organisations internationales, qui permettent à ces pays un petit peu de retrouver une certaine boussole, qui est très très complexe, il faut le dire. Moi j'ai parlé tout à l'heure que beaucoup de pays, c'est pas parce qu'ils manquent de volonté en matière de sécurité routière, c'est qu'ils ont beaucoup de priorités, parfois c'est des priorités qui sont urgentes. Donc, quand vous avez un pays, par exemple, qui fait face au terrorisme, venir lui parler de la sécurité routière, ça paraît un petit peu... Il y a certains pays qui ont ces problèmes. Donc, c'est bien, c'est une très bonne coopération qui devrait continuer à avoir d'autres formes un petit peu plus bénéfiques pour les pays qui en ont besoin.
Thank you very much. And of course, governance has a sustainable development goal all to itself as a very, very crucial aspect, not only of road safety, but of sustainability in general. So I will say that we end our discussion there, and I'll hand back to Lord Robertson for a few closing words.
Thank you. Well, it's very difficult to sum up such a varied conversation, but I think there are some clear themes that come through, that leadership, especially leadership from the top, is absolutely crucial. I spent a lifetime in politics, and there is one fundamental law of politics, which is often forgotten, but it is a fundamental law. It is not what you say, it's what people hear. And I think we need to always keep that in mind, especially in the road safety family, where we know all the statistics, we know all the arguments, and we spend a lot of our time persuading each other. We need to take that message out beyond this circle as well, and therefore the messaging has to be extremely important. Now, of course, there will be resistance. As our Latvian colleague said, people think, I've always done it this way. And I remember when I was a young member of parliament and we were campaigning to get compulsory seatbelts in cars. We had the left wing saying we don't want the police to be given more excuses to top motorists, and the right wing saying this is an infringement of civil liberties. The law was brought in. Usage rates went up from under 30% to over 90%, and there was an immediate shortage of organs for transplant in our hospitals. Gosh. Suddenly everybody was doing it and the accident rate went down, but it wasn't easy to get over the hurdle, but you can. And that's why I think we need to focus on messages that are important. Children is really a big issue. The safety of children is now something that resonates in the public. And my foundation, the FIA Foundation, which has done a lot of support for this conference and for the other two conferences and is one of the biggest NGOs in the business, we've published a manifesto, a political manifesto for the Child Health Initiative, saying these are our streets for children crying out for the help that's needed with all the measures that are in there. But I think we need to focus on what actually is the single issue that you can focus on that would actually get people listening to the argument. And that's why I said slow down. Yeah. Slow down is one of the key messages. If vehicles slow down, then there is an automatic impact on that as well. But the message, and I think from our discussion, is that it's not just enough to talk to transport ministers. And actually, most of them have gone from this morning, as we notice here.
Well, we've got a few on the panel, but...
I know. But it's other ministers as well, ministers of health, because our hospitals are cluttered up with the casualties from the roads. It's ministers of development who are spending money on development, all of which goes into hospitals in the areas that they're doing. Finance ministers. We had a minister this morning saying they lost 2% of GNP as a consequence of their road casualties. And prime ministers and presidents as well. The point that was made was the King of Morocco with a mission. The Sultan of Oman with a mission. President Chirac of France, with whom I had plenty of disagreements, on this case, absolutely right. And President Putin of Russia. All of them saying, right, this is a priority. Something must be done. No excuses, as Zelenka said. No excuses. They moved ahead, and it made a big difference. So leadership from the top is crucially important, and it produces results.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all on the panel for providing that kind of leadership and for this very engaging discussion. So we will be picking up on the point about financing and international collaboration when we return from our break. I know it's a long and intensive day, but our final discussion is all about the money, so you don't want to miss that. So we will now take a coffee break until 10 of 5. 4:50 p.m. we will return for that discussion. Again, many thanks to all of you for this very, very interesting panel.